This is what I have to say about this book and this person. CMarie's words rise from the page as river water rises during spring runoff, allowing passage for her beloved salmon. These finely honed narratives are clearly written by someone who thinks in poetry, someone who breathes with rivers and flies with raven. This is a book to teach us to slow down, breathe fully, and take a closer look at the world around us. A world that needs our grace and defense just as much as we need its wisdom and healing. So please help me welcome CMarie Fuhrman.
Litany. I got a rattlesnake in me. Getting fat on swallowed words. I got a rattlesnake in me. It bites the heart that warms it and numbs it to the teachings of my mother who said, don't say anything unless you got something nice. I got a rattlesnake in me. Stuns my ability to speak only when spoken to. I feel its split tongue strum. I got a rattlesnake in me whose cool coils circle my spleen, digesting complacency spilled in the pit of people pleasing, no sense in arguing. Speak in a quiet voice. Who you think you're talking to? That is no way for a lady to. And I don't remember asking you, keep the peace. Pleasant company, minority, diplomacy, please don't upset anyone. I'm warning you. Shh. Honey gets more bees. But I got a rattlesnake in me. Do you hear her? I got a rattlesnake in me drinking vinegar, swallowing concessions whole. I got a rattlesnake in me teaching me how to sense danger. Handle me carefully. I got a rattlesnake in me. Tired of being held up, proof of domination, tired of losing this venom for protection. Every day I remind myself, no more to be poked with sticks. I got a rattlesnake in me. No more to meet the edge of the shovel. I got her skin in me. I got a rattlesnake in me. Just like tall grass, calm rivers, and fields of wildflowers, beneath this friendly front porch, watch where you step. You all feel so welcome now, don't you? I like that poem. I met a North Pacific rattlesnake this summer, 6,000 feet. Quite a surprise because I didn't have my rattlesnake radar on. And I have a pretty sensitive rattlesnake radar, living in Idaho and having dogs. Mostly it's dogs. But there she was at 6,000 feet. Beautiful. Thick snake went right under my foot just as I was about to take a step. And I'm like, no. We don't have rattlesnakes at 6,000 feet. But yes, we do. And so I followed her. And we walked in towards the bush with her. And she just wanted to get away. But since we were following her, she coiled up. And she got into those coils and she was getting ready. And she never rattled. And so we left when she got in that position because it's a defensive position. And we didn't want to spook her in a territory where she'd likely never seen a human before. We weren't hiking a trail. We were just hiking up a very steep part of Hell's Canyon, which might explain why she was at 6,000 feet. But she didn't rattle. She stayed quiet, and we left before we ever heard anything from her. I find that heartbreaking in many ways because we're finding that rattlesnakes in many areas have stopped rattling, have lost their rattle. Because they are learning that when they rattle, they do meet the shovel. They get killed. So they've stopped making that noise. In parts of eastern, western Oregon, Washington particularly, they no longer rattle. And I find that dismaying because I see it happening to a lot of Native people when it comes to writing. That fear of censorship, that fear of not being able to speak. We lose our rattle. We lose that ability to say, like a warning, a crying out. It's happening with wolves as well. Less calling, less singing for the sake of singing. I wanted to tell you that story as we talked about banned books, and I have a couple of other stories to share with you about that. And that's why I started with that poem, because it just reminds me that I have something in me that we all do that's worth sharing. And that poem always makes me feel powerful enough to say. It gives me that rattle before the bite that I enjoy. Mark and Andrea, thank you so much for having me here at Elk River Books. I was out here a while ago reading at the old Elk River Books, and it's such a delight to be here with you all tonight in this wonderful space. It's not an easy thing to get here, is it? I mean, for some of you, maybe you just drove 5 miles. There we go. For others, it might have been a longer journey. But really, the fact that any of us are here is sort of miraculous. Your ancestors survived poverty and war and pandemics and diseases hundreds of thousands of years ago, swam through oceans or rafted across the oceans to get to places yet unexplored by Homo sapiens, went through all of that to get us here to this point tonight. And some of us, it was harder for our ancestors than others, especially on this continent, but here we are, which is kind of a big deal. And important to think about as we decide whose story matters. I have never been that person who's read from my cell phone until tonight, and I hope you forgive me. I had a little unexpected trip this week, and so I didn't come as prepared as I'd like to, so thank you. As Mark mentioned, I was the writer-in-residence in the state of Idaho from 2021 to 2023. And during that time, I did a lot of work for the state in different ways. And when January 20th came, the same people who had called me to let me know that I had been chosen as the writer-in-residence called me again. And I want to share a little piece that came out of that phone call. Are you in? Okay. I thought it was a call for help. This is in my Inlander columns, by the way. Would I be willing to meet to talk about the way the new administration was affecting an organization I had helped in the past? Of course I said yes. I was honored to be asked. I thought of the work we had done together for the state of Idaho, a state with a contentious history around issues of social justice, climate science, native rights, school curriculum, and even what books are available at public libraries. In Idaho, certain libraries you have to have a pass or be 18 or older to enter. It's the kind of work I look forward to because I believe in people's ability to think critically and to make good decisions when offered all of the information. Moreover, I think it's our duty to obtain knowledge, to seek the truth in history and in science, and to be able to listen to multiple truths, multiple stories, even when they don't align with our own. Exposure to knowledge develops empathy. Empathy gives us power, the power to forge deep connections, navigate complexity, and drive positive change through understanding and valuing the human and the non-human experience. I write for these reasons and to share stories and knowledge, to build empathy, and out of duty too. When you investigate either side, you will find that even though no race or gender-based law banned them from writing and publishing their thoughts, they were limited by cultural norms and opportunities. For women, there were limited opportunities to access education and publication. For the indigenous on my father's side, speaking one's language could lead to severe punishment, even death. The first word they took from me was colonization. It was from an essay I had written about the importance of reading stories from Native people, an essay I had written to help guide readers in Idaho to texts that would inform them. It was a program called Let's Talk About It. Do you have that here in Montana? At our public libraries, and we chose Native books, and that was the first essay they scrubbed of mine. Offer them insight into Native experience, help them understand what it feels like for people who have lived in an area for thousands of years to be physically, culturally, and linguistically removed from that area, and what it feels like still. This was not just about words, it was about silencing a history, a perspective in Idaho. It's a word they're going to look for when they F9 search our site, I was told. We can just delete it or replace it. The next word, equity. They simply deleted it. Other words they were concerned with from my essays, racism and diversity. They is the new administration, those empowered by Donald Trump on January 20th, 2025 with an executive order, quote, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing, which sought to eliminate equity-related programs. Fearing that their program would lose state and federal funding or be totally dismantled, the words that I offered them and the citizens of our state would have to be changed or deleted. Not unlike a month earlier when a college I was scheduled to speak at advised me that I should stay away from saying anything political, even though they invited me to talk about erasure. All the while trying to write words that college administrators would consider acceptable, that the administration might consider acceptable. My provost's words, and I can say my provost now because she's retiring, echoed in my head, "You have a First Amendment right and I expect you to use it." The boarding school era ended a millennia of indigenous languages in North America. Forcing Native youth to learn English, Theodore Fontaine recounts a moment of linguistic vulnerability turned into punitive isolation when he inadvertently spoke an Ojibwe phrase while playing with other young boys at Alexander Residential School in Manitoba. Sister S., who was supervising the boys, quote, yelled that she'd wash out my mouth with soap, but instead dragged me to where she'd been sitting. I was shoved into a closet behind her chair. It was under the stairs leading to the second floor, and it was used to store brooms and other cleaning materials. In the closet, Fontaine could not sit up without hitting his head on the stairs. He sought light from under the door, sobbed to no avail, and when eventually she let me out, her first word was, "Tiens," take that, followed by a warning not to speak my savage language. I thought it was a call for help. In the end, it wasn't help they wanted. It was forgiveness for deleting words and changing them. My words, my truths. It wasn't just my words that were being erased, it was my sense of trust and my belief in open dialogue. There is no replacement word for racism. While unique points of view might be used for diversity, this focuses on cognitive differences like thoughts and beliefs, not the representation of diverse groups based on race, ethnicity, gender, or other factors. But removing the words doesn't mean that any of these actual things go away. It just means that we aren't allowed to name them. It means that our ability to exercise the First Amendment right is stymied. We are not able to point to what is currently happening to writers and educators and federal employees, and likely many of us, and name it. It means that when we see a group of people exerting control over communities or individuals by limiting resources and creating economic dependencies and excluding certain diverse groups from decision-making processes and creating environments that can be hostile to certain marginalized groups, and creating situations where people are forced to communicate using the language of the dominant group, we cannot employ words like colonization, racism, or discrimination to name what is happening. They also wouldn't let me print Native American in any of the essays. Colonization was the first word they took from me, as if taking it would mean it wasn't happening. So I'm calling on my ancestors, their determination. They knew the feeling of being shut away, silenced. I am remembering how they used every weapon they had, art, story, dance, to speak their truths. Save their language, no matter the cost, even with so many powerful hands covering our mouths. hard right now. Thank you. I think of one of the books that is on the banned book list, and it's Sherman Alexie's Diary of a Part-Time Indian. And I think of what's happened to Sherman in the past few years. And if you're not up to speed with what he has endured, I'll let you find that out on your own. But he's been silenced in many ways. But for a Native writer like myself, without Sherman Alexie, there would be no CMarie Fuhrman. Banning those books doesn't change anything but the next person who gets to speak. It takes away so much from all of us. And we become those wolves and those rattlesnakes who learn to adapt. And of course we will, but not before we suffer some amounts of silencing that will continue to edit or scare us into not saying what we want to say. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like this is such a heavy talk tonight, but I wanted to put that out there for you all to think about and consider as we close this banned books week. That is hard to say.
It's really hard to say.
I saw you and I was like, why can't I get it right? And then I realized it's really hard to say. Yeah, it's like the BBB bill, but like the banned books week. Yeah. Okay. Socrates said, the misuse of language induces evil in the soul. You guys have to forgive me. I had a nephew that died very tragically just a couple of days ago, and I've been with family. I'm just a tiny bit off my game, so I so appreciate your understanding. And if I'm a little more stumbly, normally I'm a lot smoother, but tonight I'm a little stumbly, and thanks for understanding and your forgiveness. He was silenced too, by a different evil. Socrates said, the misuse of language induces evil in the soul. He wasn't talking about grammar. To misuse language is to use it in the way politicians and advertisers do for profit without taking responsibility for what the words mean. Language used as a means to get power or make money goes wrong. It lies. Language used as an end in itself to sing a poem or tell a story goes right, goes toward the truth. A writer is a person who cares what words mean, what they say, how they say it. Writers know words are their way towards truth and freedom, and so they use them with care, with thought, with fear, with delight. By using words well, they strengthen their souls. Storytellers and poets spend their lives learning that skill and art of using words well, and their words make the souls of their readers stronger, brighter, and deeper. That was written by Ursula K. Le Guin when asked what she thought about being silenced and the silencing that's happening in America. Trying to think what to give you next. How are you all doing? How are you handling what's happening in the big world right now? Are you staying small? Angry? And getting out there? I come from Forest Service, as Mark mentioned. My job was fire lookout, but my partner has been 27 years a fisheries biologist with the Forest Service, and this is the third time since January 20th his job doesn't know if he's going to get fired, go back to a job. It's hard right now. It's really hard. But it's places like this where we can come together in community in a place that has so many different voices to offer us, and trust that we can read and be critical thinkers. Taking the words away doesn't mean it doesn't happen or doesn't exist. It just doesn't mean, it means that we don't get the option to think about it. It means that we no longer have a choice. My sister and I went to DC the beginning of September because Salmon Weather was chosen to be a Library of Congress great read for the state of Idaho. How that slipped by them, I'm not quite sure. The guy that runs it now, just kind of a scaly little Republican-seeming human, came up to shake my hand, and he's like, "Are you ready for a new era of American exceptionalism?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means, but I don't think so." And he's like, "What is your book about?" And I was like, "Oh, a river in Idaho. It's just a little story of some fish." And he went on, not before they took a picture of him and I together, and I had on a shirt that said, "Not for sale." And it was held up by a peacock grizzly bear, talking about public land. So I'm not sure what became of that picture, but there it was. It's spooky times for all of us. It's spooky times for all of us. And yet, I'm looking at YouTube right now, and yet there is still so much beauty. There's so much beauty, and so much from the natural world that's calling out to us to go seek that beauty and be with that beauty. Caleb and I have been out backpacking and camping as much as we possibly can to be reminded that there's something other than human, maybe greater than human, that is still there and still worth fighting for. And this year we had a kokanee run. Like, do you have kokanee anywhere in Montana? Kokanee? No, nowhere in Montana. We had an amazing kokanee run this year. Just 100, I think within a half mile walking up the river, I counted over 1,000, which is substantial. 18 inches, just gorgeous. And if you don't know what kokanee are, they don't go to the ocean. They stay in a lake. They're landlocked salmon. And they stay there, but they come out and there's just this most abundant red color with these fierce green heads, and they're fighters, and they come out of the deep lake to spawn and die. And so I sat with them several times this year, just witnessing that kind of beauty and that kind of sacrifice, and watching the bears come and the eagles come. And whenever the world got big, we went back to the kokanee, and we're like, this is real. This is real. This is what matters right now. And it helped us stay in that place and stay above the line, if you know what I mean, and not fall beneath it. So we made an island for ourselves with the kokanee, and that saves us to keep going out there. I think that words save us too, and I've been reading a lot of poetry, Polish poets recently, and I've been trying to write about the sublime and trying to understand what that means to me in nature, and returning to that and trusting that will hold even when everything else seems like it will collapse. The last essay on salmon weather is an attempt at that, to bring everybody to a place where we can be with the real, with what really matters at the moment. And I'll close with this reading, and then I would love to just have a conversation if you all would like to chat about anything. You might come here on a Tuesday, to the trail, to this bench, to this place where the willows and sand and gravel meet the edge of your history and the rivers at this bend. It's the end of something, or the beginning, and you need a place that is reserved not in the sense of just for you, but reserved as in holding back a little, somewhere aside, off to the side, a place to watch from, so you can see, as you do now, the child in her red jacket, the lilac skirt as it flutters against the woman's knees, birds whose names you promised to learn but have yet to find the time to do so, and it aches you to know that you have put this simple task so far down now, so far down on the to-do list. And there goes the dog chasing the stick the water has worn smooth. For a moment you bound along with her, your own fur bouncing, and think that Maybe it's time to finally get another dog, a new dog. You remember that joy of watching wagging, of the welcome home, yes. Maybe it's time. You lean back against the bench thinking about time, and the dog runs from view and is soon forgotten or forsaken, like the water bowl you placed on the shelf in the closet. You are far enough from the river to see it as an owl might, as the past might, but from the height of a willow. It is dawn, or it is early evening. The summer heat is pressing, more pressing than you remember from other younger days on the river, other bends, before the dams. You wonder if, sitting here, you breathe the exhalations of fish. You ask, are there salmon in this river? The alders answer. The cottonwood answer, and their answer is enough. Isn't this why you have come here? For enough? To be in a place that is with and without. Here, the climbing and struggling is merely an ant upon your trouser leg with nothing to sell, no agenda. A being that sees you as a thing to be wandered, explored, taste that drop of honey, or was it hummingbird nectar that dripped off your finger at a time when a sweet need of another was what you filled? You draw a circle with your toe and watch the earth fall in it. You wish your scuffing would uncover an arrowhead. You know it's cliche, but you long to find one. Not because your pockets are empty, but because to hold an arrowhead would help you remember that others have come here and have left their wisdom, and like them, you want to leave something of value, something useful, to not be forgotten. Something that someone might uncover with a, oh, and remember what it feels like to be filled with wonder and mystery and curiosity, something that brings them to their knees in search for more. You think you might have something in common with the person who left that arrowhead. Maybe it's a love of rivers. Maybe they too like the smell of wet rocks and cottonwood resin. You wish to throw a rock and hear the splash. You remember what it meant to be a child at the river, to bring your bare soles to the seam, but even then you understood choices. Others fear the danger of going too far in the swift stream. But you could not help it. We all want to get carried away sometimes. Where are those skipped rocks now? Those chances and splashes? Where is the fishing pole and your mother's sack lunches and that lover who loved to make love beside water? A couple flutters a quilt to the sand and lies down. In your mind, you lie down too. When you were small, you thought that rivers were meant to take things away, the stick you threw, the ball, that plaything you let go of. You saw floods, the house carried away, the logs, the road. You saw fish float from baited hooks. Even snow and ice were carried down. If the river can take, can she also bring back? You know the river brought you here, to this bend. And now the clouds must be gathering, or perhaps the sun has dropped below the horizon, or you're just growing older, tired, but it's darker. You rise and walk finally to the river's edge. You see sky reflected there, the blue of it, the light less shimmering in water. The children have gone home for their suppers. The lovers move back into the trees, and in the distance a dog barks, and the dog and the lovers and the child in the red jacket, and even the woman in the lilac skirt are never there at all. This is why you have come to the river, you and these memories, you and every river you have ever known, ever loved. Weren't they all the life you wanted to be part of? Weren't each of the rivers what you craved from life, to bring and be carried away, to be useful and beautiful, and to have shores that would gather others? And here it still is. And it's not too late. Not too late to take off your shoes. Your coat will be on the bench where you leave it. We will all be here with you, all of us. Arrowheads pressed in our palms, dogs at our sides, waiting together in the gush of cool, feeling the smooth of stones, skipped for centuries. The salmon returning past breached dams, bringing us together like pebbles into a red. A community, a family, kin, holding on to one another, gathering at this bend was all the river brings. Thank you. Do you have any questions or, yeah, hi.
So when the censors came after your words with their axes, what was your response or your reaction? By that I mean, not only what did you feel, but what did you do, your response to that?
You know, I was so, I really thought that they were like going to ask for help, like, can we do some program where we can get the word out and, you know, get past what's happening. And then when they said it to me, it was like, it's so hard to explain, to have something you said taken away and erased. It was like a death. It was hard. And my response was to write about it in the Inlander, to call them out for it. But what I didn't do was call them by name. And what did happen is they had all their funding removed anyhow. And then the ACLU did contact me, Idaho ACLU, offering to represent me for that. But I chose not to do that in a time when our programs are already under so much attack. I feel like they've suffered enough. But it was terrifying to be told that, and to have things removed, and to be to have my words forcibly changed was terrifying. And they're still changed. If you search any of those documents that are online, they have not returned them. We have choices that we can make. We can decide to stand up for something and take the risk, or we can try or we might bow down because we're afraid of losing the money. Both things are true. The choice they made didn't help them in the end, which was very sad. They could have stood up and didn't. Hi.
Hi. I was just thinking, well, I have a limited experience of salmon, but I did live in Seattle for a while, and I know that the salmon, it's not always peaceful. They have to fight against the current and, return back to some things before they can give birth, and they die when they give birth. And to me, it's kind of how we have to fight against the current. We're in the current right now. That's what I'm thinking, but I don't know. It's not, salmon are not always peaceful.
They are not always peaceful.
And that helps me, just because when I saw your thing, I thought of the salmon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they fight.
They struggle, and then they give a new birth. It's a new birth that we're going to give, I think.
Watching the kokanee, you're right, has moments that were like, oh my God, because the males actually change their body to become better fighters. Their jaw comes out, their kite grows out, they get stronger, more muscular, and they are scarred up, and they do fight very hard. So do the females, for the best place to place their heads. And I think going to nature and finding those moments where we can see nature as a teacher for how we might want to live, to return to, as you said, to return to a certain birth and to fight for that, and to they leave their bodies as food for the next generation is quite impressive. And they are inspiring in that way. Even if their fight is for the best female or the best gravel to put their eggs. Which could be seen, when we think of some of the places you all and I both live, fighting for the gravel that people want to stay in right now. Any other questions or thoughts about writing books? Yeah.
Can you tell us about your daily, weekly routine or discipline or creative rhythm that you try and follow?
Thanks for putting the try in there. If ideally, I would bore my mother with my life. I was just telling someone tonight, when they say go big or go home, I'm like, bye. Ideally, when things are going really smoothly, I'm either out in the wilderness, where I usually spend great swaths of time alone, camping or hiking or backpacking or tending a lookout, or just in a daily pattern where I have already the time that I want to write. So Chip Blake, who was the editor of Orion magazine, recently he and I did a talk together, and he said there's 3 things I see with successful writers. And he said one is they have a practice, they have a daily practice. And I do that. I get up at between 4:30 and 5 every day, and I write until around 9. And that's the time before anyone can get to me. And anything, in the winter it's not daylight, so I'm not tempted. I can stay in. The other is a community. So I try very hard to have a strong writing community, because none of my writing would happen without others. The myth about writing being lonely is a myth to me. I write because I have others who will read my writing, who will support it, who teach me, who share my writing. It would not exist without a community of others. And the third I have completely forgotten, and I'm sure it was very important. But those 2 are how I try. I'm like a border collie. I thrive in routine, and so that's what it generally looks like. And it's seasonal too. It's seasonal. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah.
How did you get selected to have you at the Elk River Writers Workshop? Why? Why are you here? Why do you do that?
This one, I feel like this one's a little bit more, has a little more weight to it. Community is a big part of it. But when I met, so in 2015, I came out to the Elk River Writers Workshop. I was a student of Kim Barnes and Bob Wrigley's at the time, and Caleb, my partner, paid my way to come out here and be part of the workshop, because I was like, oh my God, it's Doug Peacock. And we had both read Peacock's work, and we both fancied ourselves, if not monkey wrenchers, at least Phillips screwdrivers. and so he was going to be there, Bill Kittredge, and I don't need to say anything more. Bill Kittredge was going to be there, as well as others. And I came out and met Andrea and Doug, and we became friends. And when the opportunity came, when Andrea asked if I would be the director, I knew that there would be a chance there for me to do something that was not being done at writing workshops, as a Native person, as someone who is going to really fight for diversity. Not that they weren't trying to do that, but I had a unique way in, having co-edited Native voices, and to bring that together with a love of place, of understanding the more than human beings, of climate, and create a workshop that felt like the community, or the island of unicorns, as we sometimes like to say, that I wanted to be a part of. And Andrea and Mark now, and Stephen, who is also here, still really trust me to do that. And last year we had a beautiful gathering of all Native faculty, panelists, and readers at Elk River, and one of our most successful workshops. So it was fantastic. That had never happened. 2025. It had never happened before. And I feel really honored that I got to be a part of that happening. And not just the Elk River. I mean, it had not happened before at this kind of writing workshop. It wasn't just for Native writers. It was for non-Native writers to come in and experience that wisdom and that knowing. I am giving a workshop on October 27th on how to write an op-ed or a letter to the editor or any of those, and I'll explain to you what happens to your comments, to your letters that go to senators, and build a community where you can come and write and feel not silenced by this administration, sometimes by our neighbors, by the news, that you can be a signal within the noise, and I promise you can, having been on the other side of that. And if you go to my website, CMarie Fuhrman, just my name, CMarieFuhrman.com, click the tab that says workshops, you can go there and find it. It's a free class on Zoom. And I have some friends joining me, but we'll write letters and I'll give you some templates and you can feel empowered that your voice truly does make a difference and matters to the non-human as well as the human. So you can join me there or at Elk River Writers Workshop next year, October 18th to the 23rd, so just about a year away. Thank you all so much for coming.